Okay, what is the third word in one of your favourite quotes? Now, if you just look down to the left, thinking about some inner dialogue, how I need to think about this now, that's 90% of people. So, is this a short, quick take on things to come? Body language, definitely. Human behavior, and not just body language, but the spoken word, which is the choice of words we use and the words we don't include as well, influenced by different types of processing at that point in time. So down to the left, in a dialogue, true for 90% of people, it's true for me. There's too many myths out there when people are people who might perhaps um, be cocky about, oh, I can read body language, I don't need to read any books on it. Sure, we can all read some degree of it. But there are nuances that get even more nuanced because there's assumptions being made on those things that say, oh, that means this and that means that, then, like looking right or left, um, meaning you're lying when you're saying something, or the opposite if you're left or right handed. That is not a thing. As I can speak to you from experience as a left hander, looking down to the left, it's true for me. So people were saying that those things are flipped, but it's in a dialogue down to the left, down to the right, more of your kinesthetic, your touch senses. Um, Up to the right, creating mental images. Maybe you, usually things are never seen before, but you use something that is seen, but you're changing it in some way. You're creating different ways to do this, and up to the left. Was it looking left? I think is sound up. I need to brush up on some of that. There's a diagram there. There's some variations on that. It's not immediately. It's not so defined like on a clock up 2 o'clock to the right and up. I don't know what 10 o'clock to the left. It's not so precise. There's variation. But, keep that in mind. 90% of people, according to Chase Hughes, and I read from experts, Chase Hughes is a fascinating individual, he's very methodical about his work, and very humble, I think, in his realization that he's, and like we all are, we're just a slave to these human behaviors and cues and everything else as much as anybody else. Um, so, investigation. If somebody's actually an investigator and they need to ask things that could be a witness, or the witness could be part of something that happened, they need to discern. So they're asking out. Usually, especially if they're trained in human body language cues here and there, and proper training, they ask an open-ended question, or have the question more open-ended than closed, because to minimize stress of the person being asked. So, what happened last night? If you could say, rather than what did you do last night? What happened with yourself? A bit softer, on the softer edge of things. A bit. Uh, what happened last night is the easier, more open-ended, less stressful thing. So it's a less stressful question. Of course, the individual may still have signs of stress depending on what happened and what the investigators is trying to find out. But here's the thing: people eliminate pronouns from their scripts of made-up things on the spot because it is made up. It's a unconscious thing that is equals that result. And perhaps, semi-conscious thinking like, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to be found out or this or that. So I'm not going to include myself in it. So they won't. In the language they're using, the pronouns will be collapsed down and it will sound very robotic as well because it's on the spot scripting and they don't want to open it up too much because everything how the human brain works associates with other things. And I've heard people say, I don't think of just that person or just that thing is that thing, then this, then that. Yeah. And I've heard people say that as if they're the only one doing it. Everybody does that. Some people aren't even that aware they're doing it. If I said cat to you and your typical process and your mindset, your mental processing is you lean towards visuals quite a bit. You just saw, your brain just made up a cat image probably. Yeah. Dog, cat, best friend, whatever. What's your best friend look like? And you might think of the image of them, right? But you don't think of them just that. As soon as you think of that, you think of all these things associated with them, where you saw them even, and what's associated with that. So down to the left, self-dialogue. So what happened last night, the investigators saying. So if they then see the person looking down to the left, they then get a cue like, oh, they're thinking about this and they're thinking about how they need to respond rather than just having the information easily accessible at the forefront of their mind and don't really need to think too much about it and just blurt it out. So why are they using the inner dialogue down to the left? So that's variable one. But there are no direct body language cues for human deception, but there are behaviors in line with context that can have the investigator saying, oh, that's a bit sus. So down to the left, thinking about this is maybe half a point of like, it's a little bit sus, but hardly anything yet. Then they look up, ready to speak, but the blink rate is increased. The investigators talk to them a bit before the question, and investigators will do this, particularly if they've got proper training, will talk to people for a while to discern people's baseline. And people's baseline is things like my baseline, the speed of one of my baselines, and you are multiple, the speed at which I blink. Right? How many blinks per minute, right? If that dramatically increases after 0.1 down to the left, and then they're looking up, ready to speak, it dramatically starts to increase much more. That's a stress factor. Focus is reduced blink rate. So if they didn't look down to the left and they looked and the blink rate slowed down, they're more focused. Like, oh, this is important. I need to communicate this across. Factor 3, so 1 down to the left, 2 blink rate increases, and thirdly, they describe like a more honest description, and I'll give you the less honest description of the same scenario. So the honest one would be, let's say somebody didn't look down to the left, didn't have extra blink rate, and they focused and said, well, And their body language was open hand gestures. You can feel better about that. You can discern that they're more honest. So here's their description. So I work in retail, so I'm going to use that as an example. Sometimes I'm key holder running a shop as well, so I can use that kind of scenario. Whatever might have happened, I don't know. But what happened last night after you finish work? The investigators are asking because something disastrous or something that happened, which includes a need for an investigator. So perhaps I would say, if it was me, after shutting down the shop or just closing everything down, making sure the electrics are off, health and safety, and the doors are locked. I was a bit tired after everything that happened, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get myself food tonight, so I'm just going to go over the road and get a takeaway. So I got the takeaway, I waited, and it was ready. So I left, I went home, I saw a few people. And this is the thing, you're including yourself in your description. That's important. So I saw a few people, and they're regular customers. On the way home, they said hi, we're friends. I got home, I had my takeaway, I had an early night, I went in, got a shower, and I went to bed. Now, the less honest thing, with down to the left, extra blink rate, and the description. After shutting shop, went and got a takeaway, walked home, had takeaway, had a shower, went to bed. They will eliminate the pronouns. Why? They will eliminate I. But why they do that? Because mentally they're creating a scenario that didn't happen and didn't include the person. You're creating it by looking at it from the outside inward of a fictional character that did these things, but it's not the person. They don't identify with their fiction, they identify with themselves. They don't include themselves. And they also won't say, I saw so-and-so on the way home, because they would be questioned perhaps as well. You see how that works? So blink rate is definitely something to look for, and breathing rate, when people start to panic a bit more, the chest going up and down a lot faster, a bit as out of the blue, suddenly. It's not as if they've gone up a flight of stairs or run around or anything. If that they haven't done that, that's not. So why are they doing it? The stress is increased. Blink rate, extra breathing, looking down to your left. How am I going to answer this? Self-dialogue. And context, definitely context. And look at body language cues, not in one single thing. There are whole clusters of things. And I've always been saying it. And Joe Navarro says it a lot. And he's a more professional. He's considered an expert. And he has many books out there on this. Look at people's feet. The feet point in the direction the mind wants to go. So while the investigator is asking these questions, and maybe it's in a room, number one, the down to the left. Number two, the blink rate increases. Number three, you get a collapse down, not including themselves, the pronoun, no pronouns. And there's ums and ahs, because they're making up the storyline on the spot and deciding, this word or that word mentally. What do they choose? How do they say this? And the feet are perhaps pointing towards the door or in the room they're being questioned. They want to leave. They want to go. They want nothing to do with this. Feet point towards the door, and torso sort of Maybe you're the investigator, you're in front of me, so it's called blading. If a torso is square, it's more honest, but if I'm like this, and the door's just here, and my feet are pointing this way, and it's kind of like this, but it's going, yeah, talking to you, but I want to go this way. That as well. This is why body language is a real thing, because it is the first language that we understood as human beings. Because, one of our best senses, providing you don't have eye issues, is our eyes, eyesight. This is important to consider in many ways. This is important to think about. I got something not scrolling there. Hold on. Filters. Oh, it is, but it's not going very quick. There we go. I'll slow that down. A few tweaks here and there of the template I'm doing. So this was an introductory kind of video of there's a lot of nuances to body language, and people don't really... people who are making errors in trying to process it and understand it are making... the biggest error they make is not including the context. The context, as many people say, is everything. But also, you have to include the clusters of information, clusters of body language cues. For instance, if they was very open and honest with open hand gestures, our torso, our rib cage is here, the ribs, and we like to, as animals, we evolved from all fours to upright. When it was on all fours, all this was much more protected. But then as we evolved, our body language needed like some protection around our sensitive parts if we weren't being so honest, and fear of being found out, you needed to protect yourself from something that's not even primate yet, all the way up to cavemen and onwards. There's origins here as why we behave that particular way. This, subconsciously, you like to see the palms of people's hands. It shows more honesty, and you're not concealing a weapon. There's nothing here. Wasn't me, honest. See, that's why we do this. Or, I don't know. It wasn't me. I ain't got nothing. Look, that kind of thing. But the arms open away, you're revealing yourself. So if the investigator sees that body language open up, that's a good cue. If they see the blink rate reduce, that's a good thing, because it means extra focus. If they hear the language being used as they're including themselves in the scenario, that's another variable, that's a good thing. And if their feet are pointing towards them, that's another thing. If they're amicable, they're willing to cooperate, particularly if the torso is not over here, misaligned, it's aligned, that person's being more honest. So individually, each body language cue doesn't necessarily mean deception. Blink rate on its own increasing is stress. The torso moved means I want to be over here, not communicate with you directly here. The feet, I want to go over there, or perhaps here. I'm actually moving. You can't see my feet, but so powerful body language is I'm moving my feet in line with the description. If you really want to have it underlined a billion times how powerful body language is, look at somebody ringing somebody up on a deep conversation, something that needs some details in description. You can't see, you're ringing somebody up, not a video call, you're just ringing them up. They use all these body language cues as if the person can see them, but they know they can't. It's just a spoken word, and they do all these hand gestures and everything else. that is in line with their thought process. It's very automatic. They barely even know they're doing it. So one day I realized some of that is I was ringing up a family member, and at the time, we don't do it anymore, but Nextdoor was used if there was no answer here for a parcel to be delivered, they'd leave it outside the Nextdoor for us. And already I'm pointing, body language, and I was ringing up and I was doing this hand gestures, like ringing up saying, there's a parcel, because it was like an Amazon delivery, and you get alert and image of it. I saw the picture and I thought, that's outside Nextdoor's door, it's not ours. So I'm ringing up and I finally got them. It said, are you home? No. When you get home, can you, and I was going like that, can you grab a parcel? It's not in front of the door, it's from Nextdoor. I was doing all this and I've seen the picture, and just go grab it and bring it in, please. And I said, bring it in, and I was doing this. They can't see me, but it's all communicated, it's all part of communication. When we were hunter-gatherers, that was crucial. Before we developed verbal language, and if you're hunting, you want to be stealth-like, and you don't want to alert your prey with sounds that you're there. So you want to be quiet, maybe behind tall grasses or whatever, stealthily, but you focus and you're watching each other, and you do all this like sign language. That's a form of body language. So also, if you look at primates, we're primates. If you look at monkeys, the whites of their eyes are not as much as ours. Highly likely that evolved to non-verbal communication, again, because it's very easy to see the actual direction somebody's looking in because of that contrast of the whites of the eye before you get to the iris and the pupil where that's directing. You can tell what direction or what someone's looking at from plenty of meters down in a room, right? You can't really discern that too well from maybe a dog's eyes too much, or it's just the direction of the head more than anything, or a monkey. We're social animals, and it shows in our biology, it shows in our features physically, as well as how we use the physical. And we always reveal that different aspects of a lot of information that we highly likely you're not even 99.9% of the time, there's so much information that you're revealing that you don't even know you're revealing. Those feelings you get from some people on, I'm not sure I trust that person, but I can't quite put my finger on it. That's the more primitive aspects of your what's developed early in the brain through evolution, than the newer parts, like the neocortex, the higher, smarter brain. That's it telling you, don't trust that person. It doesn't do spoken word language. It doesn't know how to communicate. It doesn't speak English. But it gives you the gut feelings. Something's off there. But learning more on the body language and listening to the tone of voice, the inflections as well, in line with these body language cues. It seems sometimes like a lot of information to absorb, but it is, yeah. And investigators need to be trained sometimes to absorb all that. So it's a lot of hard work for them, particularly if a witness is just an innocent witness or could be part of the culprit of whatever might have happened. So, again, this is not necessarily one specific subject, or just scenario aspect of things. I'm putting out a video here. There's a lot more to come on that, and I really think a lot of people don't understand what body language is necessarily. They think about facial expressions. If you ask people, and I've yet to meet anybody who gets it right. If you ask people what is the most honest part of body language, they always get it wrong. And the most honest part is that which is furthest away from our focus, our mental focus. The furthest something is away from the head, more honest it's going to be, because we're not looking at it or trying to control it. The feet, the legs, where are the feet pointing? And further up you go at the body, the less kind of honest it might be in some scenarios, right? You can't trust the face because we're capable, more than capable of, you use fake smiles and so on, but you can discern, oh, I think that's a fake smile. It's like when facial expressions change very quickly, that person's likely to be acting or faking. Sometimes, yeah, you might, and it's not a bad thing to use a fake smile, really, necessarily. It's just helping other people feel at ease with you. Perhaps you might use a smile just to say, hey, I'm not a threat, versus genuine smiles. But never trust the person. You can trust me. Honestly, never trust the person that says, you can trust me. I'm joking. When people double down a lot on things like that, though, it should be a red flag, though. We all wear a mask. Everybody wears a mask. And the thicker the mask, the more dishonest that person is. People boasting, I'm completely honest, I'm transparent. Yeah, we heard I remember an individual, his name is Steve McRae. He used that a lot. I don't know how to lie. I'm no good at lying. I'm transparent. Anybody who says that, you think, why you even bother putting the energy into saying that? If it was that obvious, people would just know anyway, but he said it too many times. There are red flags to listen for. Alright? Thank you very much for watching. You take care. I hope you're having a great day. I'll look forward to doing another video soon. I'm on vacation soon, so I'll be offline for the most part. I won't be using the internet too much, so you won't see me in chats or around for a week, maybe a day more than that, a day or so more than that, depending on how that works out. But I'll be back after a week, and I'll be looking into communicating some of these nuances that people make, misunderstandings on body language, because there's a lot of myth, and it's like a noisy aspect. We need to, as I've mentioned before, there's a noise to signal ratio problem in the world. We can cut through this nuance and communicate what is real with the subject of body language, and what does it include as factual, objective facts, not subjective assumptions and misinterpretations on what body language cues mean within different contexts. Because different ones can mean different things in context. For instance, so all of that combination, the down to the left, the ums and ahs not including the person myself, the higher blink rate, the torso this way, each one of those can mean different things in different contexts because of, maybe it wasn't an investigator asking, maybe it's just somebody doesn't like So I'm not going to reveal too much to that person. I don't like that person. I'm not going to reveal what I did the other night to them. Why are they asking? Kind of thing. So this is why context is everything. And again, each individual body language thing, cue, each individual cue should be not looked at just on its own. What else is happening? What are the legs doing? What's the torso doing? What are the eyes doing? Where's your head pointing? What are you sounding like when you speak? Is there vocal fry, like stress in your voice? Is there all this blink rate and so on? Thank you very much. Bye.